Going back to what you said about lack of knowledge, it's hard how Papa was saying you could be in church thinking you believe, but you really don't. So let's roll that clip real quick.
You can actually be in a ministry where miracles are happening, and yet you may think you believe in them while you don't believe in them. I said earlier on, I said, Jesus was with the apostles who were living with him, and yet they thought they were believing, and they were not. Imagine where you think you believe and you don't. And Jesus would only know whether you really believe or not when you're in trouble. So Jesus is in a boat and the boat wants to sink. And these guys are crying.
I think it's easy for us to say, it's easy for us to kind of sit back and be like, oh, well, Jesus was with you. So, why didn't you believe in him? Why didn't you believe that everything's going to be all right? And I can hear someone saying, if it was me, I would have believed. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
we're looking at it from a wide view, from an aerial view. We're not in the situation, right? But this is what I would say to that person. What if I told you the same spirit that was in Jesus lives in you now?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Would you still walk with that bold faith? Would you still say, oh, I would still believe? Well, that faith is in you now. So you can still be able to do those things that kind of may put some fear in your heart and may say, oh, I don't know if I can do it. With God, all things are possible. We can definitely do it. We put God first and we keep God in our plans. But if we put ourselves, in the shoes of the disciple, being in a boat with Jesus and it starts to sink, we can kind of understand why they were maybe crying for help because, we all have to work on our faith. We all have varying levels of faith. And if your faith hasn't been tested, if your faith is maybe not as high as you want it, if you see trouble, you may cry out for help. At least they did cry out for help, right? So God, so Jesus would be able to help them out. I'm glad they did do that,
And yeah, it's kind of like watching a thriller movie for the first time. You got you on edge because you don't know what's about to happen. But then once you figure out what happened, once you see the ending, you know what happens. If you watch it again, you don't care how good it is. You don't care about that same part that had you on edge. Now you're going to be, oh, I already know. Even though this is going to happen,
right,
I
right,
know
right.
the ending is going to be this. That's how we look at Jesus when it comes to adversity. It doesn't matter what the storm brings because we have our Savior on our side, and we understand that at the end of the day, no matter the adversity, the challenges, the obstacles that we face, joy comes after the adversity. Joy comes after those